Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. This is welcome to the Securematics FastTRAC. This is a series of webinars that we've been doing, and which some of you, I expect, maybe have attended previously. My name is Mitch Wade. I handle part of sales for Securematics, the western half. My Ed Bender, as some of you may know, handles that on the east. So basically, we're here today to with the objective to give you an overview of where we're at with our Internet of Behaviors and basically how this can add value. You know, we've been going through some of these webinars where we provided a little more of a deep dive on basically our own journey with our own office and our own setup in order to try to allow our employees to come back to the office safely with COVID-19 and such. These included, and in our own journey, we discovered that there was disparate technologies that, quite frankly, were not as easy as we thought they might be in order to set them up and in order to try to provide contact tracing and zone alerts. And so now what we're going to go into today is more of an expansion of Internet of Behaviors beyond that into things such as wayfinding and others. With us today will be Sam Fadala. Sam is our expert in this arena, so Sam's going to go through some slides, and we're also on the call today will be Keegan Wade. Keegan is our solution architect and has been very instrumental with especially the analytics portion of what we've been doing. Also is Bailey Geyser. She's our head of marketing. She's the one who's kind of puts all this together for us. And normally Brian Vincic, who is our general manager, would be doing this, and he will be coming into the call shortly. I do want to just also say Securematics, for those of you who don't know, we're based in Southern California. We've got roughly 50 people around the U.S. We service, and we're a focused high-touch distributor, but we'd like to say that we're more than a distributor. We're focused on Juniper, Mist, Ruckus, SonicWall, and Pulse. Because we're focused on those vendors, we are highly skilled, and we think we certainly provide a higher level of service for those OEMs. And FastTRAC would be an example of that and of what we do. So we're also going to have some polling questions for you through this, so hopefully you can obviously participate. We also want this to be interactive. And so please ask questions as we go through. And one other thing is maybe joining us today, it might be Chewy. He's my rescue dog. He's a Tijuana Terrier, so if he does bark, he's not always happy with people going by on the outside. So Chewy might be part of this webinar as well. So anyway, all that said, let me turn it over to Sam. Sam, please take it away.
Hi, everybody. And as Mitch said, thanks so much for giving us some of your time today. And today, so the goal is to, as Mitch said, discuss Internet of Behaviors, which might be a new term to some of you. But let's go ahead and dive into the next slide. So where I wanted to start is where we've started every one of these sessions with is what is this journey that we've been on. And just as a reiteration, some of you I'm sure have seen this slide a number of times now, but with the whole COVID response, which is what really initiated our efforts here around this whole idea of contact tracing, congestion monitoring, and health screening, we looked at it from a journey, from not only the journey that Securematics took for their own business and office space, but everybody has to take, and especially, getting children back to school and things like that. So, for us, the first mile is getting people from home to the front door of either the school or business. And there's a number of ways of dealing with specifically the COVID situation, which is, as you can read here, questionnaires, apps on mobile phones, facial recognition and temperature screening, et cetera. And then, once you get to that front door and you're okay, you get to come in. And then once you're inside, there's, most requirements are around contact tracing and congestion monitoring. So that's just kind of where we started. But today we're going to go a little bit of a deeper dive, I suppose, from a, what is all this whole Internet of Behaviors thing about? So go ahead and move to the next slide, please. So we can't talk about Internet of Behaviors until we talk about Internet of Things. Internet of Things has been around quite a while. It's now probably, well, I think we're at least maybe 4 years into Internet of Things. So, but just like the cloud, what's the Internet of Things? Well, really, we've got all of these devices, and for it to be considered an Internet of Things device, it actually has to be connected to the network, and it has to be able to collect data. And this is really where the whole idea around big data came from. So all of these devices are connected on the network in some way. They're gathering a bunch of data, and they're collecting all this data, which is, quote, big data. So the interesting part is a lot of companies have been trying to figure out, well, what do we do with all this big data? So, of course, we already know there's a big push for, analyzing this data to market to us and things of that nature. And that's kind of where all of this sort of Internet of Things came from. So just to give an example, Content Stack estimated the entire IoT in the mid 2019s included 27 billion devices. This year it's closer to 75 billion. So that's a pile of devices. That's all part of this IoT thing. For Americans, that breaks down to an average of 5 connected devices per household. So, and then of course, businesses are trying to use IoT for detecting and troubleshooting issues remotely, predicting maintenance needs, tracking production line efficiencies, monitoring devices, and other things. So all of these things can directly impact a company's revenue. So let's go ahead and move to the next slide. So here's just a picture of all of the potential things that are part of the Internet of Things. As you can see, we've got a laptop, we've got cell phones and tablets and wearable devices, and we've got security cameras and your stove, refrigerator, microwave, smart buildings, automobiles. It just goes on and on. It's actually, I find it pretty amazing, and how far we've come from this whole Internet of Things aspect. Can you go ahead and go to the next slide? So I just thought I'd put up just a few examples of this whole Internet of Things thing, and I'm sure most everybody knows, but it's kind of fun to go over some of this stuff. So some of the obvious ones, smart thermostats. It can actually, understand your preferred home temperature and do that for you. And of course, you've got your app on your phone, so you can control it and turn it on and off and change things. Light bulbs. I think that's pretty interesting. That can alert you to outdoor air quality. I've already seen, I think we've all seen the smart light bulbs that can turn pretty colors and things like that. That's kind of neat. Or even plug into a device in your outlet that can turn on and off. Smart locks. So I don't know how many of you have ever done Airbnb, but I actually did an Airbnb, property that I owned, but it was in another state. So I was like, well, how do I solve this whole idea of letting people in and out without a key? So I was actually able to put a hub inside the house, add some locks to the front door, to the back door with a combination, and then every Airbnb guest that came along, I could actually assign them a unique code, which then logged it, and I could let them in and out, and I didn't have to worry about a key. It was really just very, and I included the HVAC systems in that as well. So invariably, it was a 2-story condo kind of place. Invariably, the top or top floor, they'd leave the air conditioning on, bottom floor, they'd leave the heat on when they left. So I could just remotely off my app on my phone, turn them both off, for example. Hugely beneficial. Even stuffed toys that can calm your child at night, as this says, driverless vehicles, jet engines, and then basically, I mean, we kind of touched on this, sensors in a machining manufacturing plant. What's kind of interesting on these sensors, years ago, I actually toured a Budweiser plant, and they were actually able to put these sensors on a device, you know, like maybe a valve, and it could sense vibration and things of this nature. It could predict if that device was failing, automatically send a technician to replace that device to virtually eliminate downtime. So as I hope you can see, I mean, IoT has been pretty powerful from many different perspectives, from my perspective. So next slide. So this is kind of a fun example. At last year's Paris Air Show, they've actually they introduced this Bombardier C series jetliner, and it's got Pratt & Whitney turbofan engines on it. It has, just the engines have over 5,000 sensors on them that can generate 10 gigabits of data per second. That's a lot of data. As you can see, a single twin engine aircraft with an average of 12-hour flight time can produce up to 844 terabytes of data. Again, we're getting back to this whole big data idea. It's just wild. In comparison, at the end of 2014, it was estimated that Facebook accumulated around 600 terabytes of data per day. So that can give you kind of an idea of just how much data that is. Next slide. Here's where it gets interesting. So this year for 2021, Gartner released the top strategic technology trends for 2021. And if you just look at this for a minute, we've got 3 swim lanes: people centricity, location independence, and resilient delivery. Well, I think those all sound like really great, you know, goals, right? Very, very, you know, top left, right, Internet of Behaviors. So if you haven't heard Internet of Behaviors, hopefully you can see now that it is in fact one of the top trends for 2021. But what's even more interesting about this list is we look at total experience, which is really a combination of employee experience, customer experience, all combined together as a total experience. Private enhancing, we all care about this, you know, improving our privacy on all of these devices. And then we bump over to location independence, distributed cloud, anywhere operations, and even getting into some of these other features like wayfinding. And then finally, resilient delivery. And here's where, of course, you know, I think the majority of folks on the call are Juniper partners, and you probably know about Juniper AI. So you've got AI engineering, et cetera. So for all of these trends for 2021, I think we're in a great spot on the technology we're providing. It's really, it's got strong representation in what Gartner is saying is, you know, the top technology trends for 2021. So, oh, by the way, you know, one thing I didn't say, this is supposed to be interactive. So anybody out there who wants to ask a question, just type it into chat and we'll be happy to jump in and try to field your answers. So, okay, so here we go. What is Internet of Behaviors? So we talked a little bit about the whole Internet of Things. Internet of Behaviors is actually a subset of the Internet of Things. And as it says here, it's used to actually change behavior. So I actually grabbed this quote again out of Gartner, and I kind of liked just the way that it stated this: with an increase in technologies that gather the digital dust of daily life, you know, data that spans the digital and physical worlds, information that can be used to actually influence behaviors through feedback loops. So what this is really saying from my perspective is IoB is all about personalization. You know, we'll talk a little bit more about, basically, it was first created to influence, of course, consumer choice, because it's all about marketing and getting folks to, you know, buy things and things of that nature. But it, you know, the interesting part about it, the majority of consumers aren't happy to give away their data for free, but they're satisfied with doing it as long as it brings them some type of added value. And that's kind of why we wanted to preface this webinar around Internet of Behaviors and adding value. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So here, again, just to kind of go over, where did this IoB thing come from? And originally, again, it was a very consumer-centric, analyze the consumer's buying habits and what types of platforms, and, is it online, is it in store, studying previously unattainable data. Now, again, we have so many data points from the cell phone, from online habits, from social media, et cetera. Now we're getting, the idea is here, of course, the folks marketing to these customers have a much deeper insight into what folks like and don't like. And then again, targeting ads. And boy, I'm sure we all know that, how we get bombarded with customized ads. In fact, it's almost a little creepy. I'm sure we've all experienced this, where me and my wife will be talking about something. It could be anything, like an automobile or something, and an ad pops up. It's like, okay, wait a minute, that was kind of spooky. And then, of course, quickly resolving issues to keep sales, close sales and keep customers happy. So this is the original goal of IoB. And let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So here's 2021 Gartner's picture of this total experience idea, which again revolves, around this whole Internet of Behaviors thing. So as you can see, it's more business and, employee business and customer experience centric, but, you've got all of these data points from both directions. You can see the multi-experience from the customer's perspective and the feedback going back towards the employee, and then the employee's experience and the feedback back towards the customer. So it's really just trying to define, this multi-experience, which is really customer experience, employee experience, and user experience, to transform the business outcome. So, and of course, the goal is to improve the overall experience of all these pieces as they intersect, from technology to employees to users. So that's what this slide is depicting. Any questions up to this point? Nothing so far? Okay.
Nothing so far.
Awesome. Well, not awesome. Come on, guys, ask me some questions. No, just so, okay. So then this COVID thing came along, and it really changed kind of the dynamics of what this Internet of Behaviors was and is. Now it's really about, truly changing behavior. Here's an example that I read, and I'll just share with you. So when employees at an industrial site returned to the workplace after it was closed during the COVID-19 pandemic, they noticed a few differences. BLE sensors or RFID tags were used to determine whether employees were washing their hands regularly. Computer vision determined if employees were complying with mask protocol, and speakers were used to warn people of protocol violations. What's more, this behavioral data was collected and analyzed by the organizations to influence how people behaved at work. So pretty different than the original intent of marketing and advertising. So what we've taken out of that is now we can use these IoB devices or IoT devices in an IoB fashion to actually implement contact tracing, congestion monitoring, again, verifying mask compliance, hand washing, and again, analysis of all of this data, all of these multiple streams of data to affect behavioral change. So, okay. So the pandemic response. So here's just kind of a pictorial of, again, we talked about that journey, and as folks walk up to that front door, what do we go through here? Well, the very first thing, we can do health screening, and that's, you can see represented here by thermal screening. Then once they're into the perimeter, which is the green circle, we can go ahead and implement contact tracing. And again, we're going to use Mist for that management piece or that single pane of view. And then finally, we need to take all of this information and log it and track it for compliance and reporting purposes. So the nice thing about what we've figured out and done is you can tie the back end of Premium Analytics into another, HR system or something of that nature for that compliance and reporting piece. Okay, next slide. So again, I pulled this from Gartner. Here's, how many CEOs hope to regenerate business quite quickly. And, I just thought this was kind of interesting because, of course, the majority are a cautious restart. Well, again, this is about how can we use IoB to add value. Well, right here with this cautious restart, if we can give them these technology tools to give them more confidence in keeping their work environment safe, complying with any potential regulatory issues, again, health screening at the front door, walking in, being able to actually do contact tracing, that's going to go a long way. And you can see 33% of CEOs are concerned about this cautious restart. I think that's a really big value add. I think here we are enabling these CEOs to feel better about exactly this. Hey, they're taking steps. They have tools to do this restart cautiously. Mitch, did you want to jump in on any of on this particular slide?
I guess I was just going to ask if we were going to ask the poll, or is that poll coming pretty soon here, guys? I think it'd be good to get.
Yep. It is.
Okay, cool. So the poll is basically, when do you think your city will be back to normal from COVID-19? I know we all want it to happen sooner rather than later, but what are your expectations of reality? Is it 3 months out, 6 months, 12 months, or will we never have normal or normalcy back?
And then I did have one kind of question come through. I think this is about the slide with the IoB and smart devices. How about smart batteries tied to smart devices when my power goes out? I don't know if you have any insight on that.
So if I understand the question, basically it's battery powered backup devices for your smart devices. So yes, I mean, I would say that that's probably a good idea to have some type of backup for sure in case of an outage. And of course, you'd still have to, you'd have to have connectivity, right? You'd have to have access to the internet or be on a network that had multiple internet drains, right? So as long as you had connectivity going back to wherever the analysis is going, yes, that would work. Now, if you're specifically talking about a building and the kiosk with health screening at the front door, it can actually work offline to go ahead and do that health check. So it's not dependent on the internet, but of course, going back and logging and keeping all that would have to happen after the power was restored. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. Thanks.
Okay.
So on the poll, 12 months was the winner, and 6 months a little bit behind there, and then a couple outliers here, I guess, of 3 months. Again, 3 months out would be great, and then again, a few folks feel like maybe you'll never be back to exactly normal. But anyway, thank you for the responses, and we'll stay tuned and see. I guess I just wanted to add a little, just some input here, which may or may not be interesting, but I myself worked in the world of e-commerce for a number of years, and the online activity, online behavior is one where we've known retailers and brands and websites know who comes in. They know how long you're there, they know what pages you look at, they know when you bounce, when you leave. If it's a transactional site, they know, obviously what you put in your basket, what what the makeup is of that basket, what's the average basket size. They know a lot about your activity. And so really what you're running into now is with Internet of Things and Internet of Behaviors is a similar type of a scenario in the real world in order to, whether you think it's Big Brother or not, but it's basically a way to understand, like behavior and understand and either in the case of contact tracing, understanding who you've been in touch with, understanding how many people are in a room, and understanding, in the case of wayfinding, trying to help people to navigate a campus or a whatever the a museum or you name the venue. So anyway, I just wanted to add that because what you're seeing is the online world becoming, or the brick and mortar or the real world becoming more like the online world. And of course, with AR and other technologies, you're trying to also probably have the online world become more like the physical brick and mortar world. So anyway, just some feedback and some hopefully that makes sense to you guys.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So this one should get everybody on this call excited, especially for you partners out there. So historically, we all know how many companies want to be on the bleeding edge. None, or very, very few. Interestingly enough, that dynamic has changed. So with COVID and with the Internet of Behavior and all of these, people and technology companies racing to introduce AI and all of these advanced technologies, now we're able to actually get funding for innovation and for risk taking in IT. So no more is the tried and true philosophy as important as it once was. And I think that's great news for us. So all of these things, again, getting back to that idea of helping these CEOs feel more cautious and feel more comfortable with help protecting themselves and taking advantage of some of these potentially new experimental or digital innovations. They're actually opening up the wallet and they're willing to pay for some of these things now. So you can see right here, for digital innovation, 63% are now willing to pay for that digital innovation. And I know I've actually talked to quite a few customers, and this is a big deal. Just the whole digital transformation efforts in many companies are pretty strong and pretty loud. But again, to us, most importantly, they're funding these activities. And then over here for increased funding on experimental risk or experimental / risk taking in IT. Yeah, I mean, it's been my experience in the past, not so much. People, they don't like to take risks. They want to buy with their social or their corporate folks have deemed that tried and true and it's been tested. Now at least it looks like 28% are willing to take those risks and do some of this experimental buying. So I don't know if there's any comments on that, but I found that's pretty interesting. And again, of course, as you can see, this is all because of COVID. So, and then here's another big topic that comes up almost on every call. So, the whole idea of Internet of Behavior, Mitch mentioned it a little bit earlier, Big Brother. It's an interesting dilemma because we're all, giving tons and tons of our data to these companies all the time. And, sometimes we're okay with it, but it really has escalated the requirement to control, sensitive data. And again here, so the first part, trusted environment in which sensitive data can be processed or analyzed. This really gets back to that big brother, or not big brother, but the big data idea, where all of these streams of data are getting dumped into these databases with just tons and tons of our data, sensitive data in it. So that information, that data needs to be protected. And that's where it's being processed and analyzed. The other one, perform processing and analytics in a decentralized manner. Well, again, here, this kind of lends to the cloud solution or cloud philosophies. But again, we still need to control this data. And if it's decentralized, for example, maybe across AWS or something like that, the likelihood of a breach or losing that data across the entire spectrum of data is lessened. And then finally, getting that data encrypted and both data and algorithms before even this processing or analytics begins. But what this trend is really doing is it enables organizations to collaborate on research securely across regions and with competitors without sacrificing confidentiality. And this approach is designed specifically for the increasing need to share data while maintaining privacy or security. Okay, so don't know if that brought up any more questions or not. So here's
no questions yet.
No question? Okay. So here's the pandemic response, or proposed pandemic response. So just like everything, a response should be a plan, and we talk about this a lot. But here's a proposed process where, of course, you start off with your risk assessment and assess the employee risk because of various employees or again children going to school could be at a different levels of risk, potentially more exposure versus less, et cetera. So let's assess the employee's risk, and then we're going to get into risk management. And again, how do we get employees back to work safely? And we'll talk a little bit more about our specific ideas and solutions around that. But again, the goal, get employees and children back to work and or school safely, and then prevent new outbreaks, of course. And then, of course, good old risk mitigation, minimizing workplace spread and basically controlling the whole entire enterprise risk. Let's go to the next slide. So we can go about this in a number of ways, and we've talked about this on in other sessions. This can be a very, very manual process where we've already seen a lot of this, where somebody can be at home, they can be taking their temperature at home, they can be answering a questionnaire really with pen and paper. There can be just a number of manual processes, slow, not necessarily very, very inaccurate, and certainly not efficient. We can add some digital aspects to that. Again, manual plus digital. Some examples might be a person taking temperatures at the door. So they're standing there with a thermometer and then they're recording that on a piece of paper. Still not great because you're exposing that person taking the temperatures to every person who enters the facility. So that's not great. And then we can simply add a digital aspect to that by adding a temperature sensing kiosk, for example. And then from a fully automated process, which of course is the best, we can incorporate all of these technologies that we discussed and really kind of control this safety protocol from the beginning of the process all the way to the front door, inside on-prem, contact tracing, congestion monitoring, alerting, and again, analysis and logging for compliance. So let's go, yeah, there we go. Time for another poll.
Have you used an app for wayfinding and or asset tracking? Yes, no, or I've not heard of wayfinding or asset tracking. Please, we should have the Jeopardy soundtrack going right now, but Okay.
Okay. Let's see, 41% yes, 41% no. Wow, that's interesting. A split. And then 18% have not heard of either. Well, perfect. Okay. So
If I could just, on this slide here, the prior slide, sorry. Would do you recommend, Sam, or do you think it's, you know, a lot of times people talk about crawl, walk, run, or, you know, kind of a you know, basically a phased approach to developing a solution, and with the goal in this case being that the run would be digital and automated. But do you think that proposing something that would be more of a, let's say, starting off with manual and digital, and then going into digital, and then digital automated, is a good strategy?
yeah, that's a great point, Mitch, and I do. So for example, you know, if a customer wanted to ease into this, probably the most simple low-hanging fruit, so to speak, would be the temperature sensing kiosk. It's at the front door. You're controlling access. It may not even be tied back to anything other than giving them an okay health check at the front door. And the nice thing is pretty much all aspects of this, of our proposed solution is modular. So you're absolutely right. You can start there, then you can add the components to it as you go to include the Mist access points. You can add BLE sensors. You can add lanyards to increase accuracy, etc. So absolutely, you can certainly walk and then get to the point where you can run.
Yeah. Anyway, I know that was a softball question, Sam, but I guess I just feel like that I think for a lot of schools and a lot of, you know, customers, that it's a good way to get them to, again, you know, kind of have a phased approach to this. So going back to the 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, you know, say it's 3 months of the manual digital, and then 6 to 9 of the digital, and then trying it with a you know, 9 to 12 months out being digital and automated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good point. Good point. Okay. So again, for some of you, I'm sure this is probably a review, but here's what health screening kiosks look like. You can look off over to the left. That's a standard kiosk. And of course, there's some stand representations. And to the right there, there's the Pro kiosk. But you know, I don't want to spend too much time on these since we've done this in previous sessions, but if anybody has any specific questions, you know, we can certainly dig in.
And the way they work is that the students or the employees take a selfie, and then that information, whenever you check in, you stop at the kiosk. And so we're using this in our office today. And when you check in, you walk up and it says, you know, hi Mitch, your temperature is 97.8 or whatever, and you're good to go. That information is then provided to the admin, which is our general manager and our HR lead. And so then they see that, they make sure that everybody has gone through. We have had a few anomalies where people were coming in and it was over 100. It was but it was more that it was too close to the door, or the sun was shining on it, so we had to adjust it. But still, you know, that's basically the process. It's very simple, and it's a real easy, streamlined workflow. But keeping in mind that if you've got 1,000 people coming through, then you've got to get into queue management and things such as that. So.
Yeah, and just another comment on these, and it seems to always come up, so I'll say it now. The neat thing about these is they're actually not taking your picture. They're looking at 160 different points on your face, turning that into a mathematical algorithm, encrypting that data, sending it up to the cloud where it sits encrypted and secure. And then that way, anytime anybody accesses one of these kiosks, it can actually do facial recognition and take their temperature. And by the way, you can also have this unit provide questionnaires as well. So it can do a lot. And again, it's secure and a great place to start.
Yep.
So, okay, next. So here is a live view of contact tracing. And at this point, I was going to go ahead and ask Keegan to step in and just give us some, this is Juniper Mist. To go ahead and make this work, it includes Juniper APs, Juniper BLE devices, and premium analytics. So Keegan, if you could hop in and just tell us about this technology.
Yeah, so we've discussed this before, but to go over it again, Mist, the Mist location map view or any type of analytics or anything we've kind of discussed in the past is built off the Mist cloud platform, which is built off the Mist hardware, such as the Bluetooth APs, which help gather assets or devices such as your mobile devices, and this view shows a kind of a aerial view of where all these devices are actually located throughout your office or your facility. So it's fantastic in the sense that you could use asset tracking for this. Like if you, let's say, attached a NASA tag to a stapler and it went missing for a while, you can easily find it by just simply going onto the Mist location map, and it will show you pretty much within, maybe a few feet of air where it would be located. And then obviously, if you want to know where your clients are, your customers, anyone who you're want to monitor, I guess, it can show you where they are, and can show you what rooms they're located in. And yeah. Is there anything else you want me to touch on, Sam, or?
Well, let's go ahead and go to the next slide.
Sure.
Is this view just, this is real time, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And let's, yeah, or one back. Or maybe not. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This one, right? Sorry.
Yeah.
Has a little bit of a lag.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. One forward.
Okay.
So I guess touching on, so that location view is great for kind of giving you a aerial view of where people are and where things are located on a map. But if you want to look at analytics, if you want to know where people are at certain times, or if you want to backtrack and know where people have been at a certain place at a certain time, then you need to use Premium Analytics, which is an easy addition to the Mist platform and allows a lot wider, I guess, view of where these assets and devices have been throughout the day. There's many new features that they continually add actually on top of the Mist platform, but there is alerting. So if you need, I guess, talking about I guess regulations or compliances within rooms or facilities, you can get real-time updates on whether those thresholds have been hit, and it will shoot out an email to whichever address you've listed to give you that real-time alerting when needed.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Keegan. And any questions before we move on to the next item?
No questions so far.
See, everybody's being really nice to me today again. Okay. Oh, so did you want to touch on this, Keegan? This is the zone piece.
certainly. So this is similar to the live map on the Mist platform, but simply breaks. It's an exact map, but it breaks down the facility that you have where you've created zones, where you've created rooms that you want to monitor. So going back to those compliancies, if there are too many people, let's say in the Q&A area, as there is right now, you've reached the 150% compliancy, meaning you're over, and you can do a variety of triggers relating to hitting that threshold, as well as it coming up as red on the map. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And now we can move one more forward. So we talked about wayfinding a little bit and asset tracking, or at least our poll did. And one interesting thing that we can do to enhance our accuracy is add more BLE devices. So there's a couple of different kinds. So this one here that I'm hanging up or holding up is a lanyard with a little BLE device inside it. And this, of course, could be worn around the neck. Now you've got a much better location identification method with a device like that. As far as assets go, you can also get these other BLE devices right here, where you could actually stick on devices like maybe a toolbox or whatever somebody wanted to track. And with Mist Premium Analytics, you're going to be able to get a much granular view. I think without, and you keep me honest on this, Keegan, I think without adding any BLE lanyards, we're good up to, is it 3 feet or 3 meters? Keegan, as far as accuracy?
I mean, your accuracy is going to vary depending on your setup. But as far as the results that we got within the office, I think we got between, 1 to 3 meters in accuracy.
Okay, perfect. And then when we added the lanyards, that increased to almost less than a meter. Is that correct?
Well, it's important to note that you're going to get way better results using a mobile device for accuracy information. So assets like the Contact.io assets, they are going to give less pinpoint accuracy as a mobile device with a Mist SDK app installed on it.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so with all of the things that we've talked about with the Internet of Things and the Internet of Behaviors and our journey from home to on-prem, and with the goal originally centering around contact tracing, health screening, and congestion monitoring, we've come up with just some, a safe technology solution as well as a safe non-technology solution. And here's just kind of to give you an idea. Again, we've talked about it already, but Juniper Mist AI-driven wired assurance platform, that's really the Juniper Mist APs, BLE sensors, and of course, as you can see on item number 4, we have the Juniper Premium Analytics, and then we get to add congestion monitoring and things of that nature. I showed you the Contact.io devices to add beacons and lanyards, and then of course at the front door we've seen kiosks, which can also do facial detection and temperature screening, along with that questionnaire if you so desire. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. So we've spent a lot of time talking about technology, as we always do, because we're so technology focused, but it's important to realize that with this whole COVID response, there's a bunch of non-technology solutions or requirements really that need to be considered as well. And we just didn't want to leave that out. So Securematics, in our effort to create this safe environment, the safe work environment, we still had to include signage and placards and, non-touch hand cleaners and personal protective equipment, and even item number 3, physical layout. So one interesting thing to consider is if you've got your Juniper Mist Premium Analytics set up and ready to go, then you can actually see where you might be seeing some congestion, and maybe you can change your physical layout, your cube layout, or whatever the case may be, maybe desk arrangements from a school's perspective. And then this way you can minimize some of those log jams, so to speak. And then finally, item number 4, again, we've talked about it a lot, but there's kind of a non-technology aspect to protecting privacy data and HIPAA. And then of course, just the whole regulatory compliance thing. And if you got to see my last session on HR and regulatory compliance, it's interesting because it's just absolutely all over the board, all over the United States. So some of the things we noted were some states have absolutely no COVID related laws, and some have well over 600. So that's where it really comes into play to understanding exactly what regulatory compliance requirements are for your specific customer. So, and then let's go ahead and go to the next one. So we showed you earlier, and we talked about the fact that you can walk before you run, and kind of with that in mind, this really is a modular tiered solution where you can do as much or as little as you want to do. So we wanted to just represent this in a good, better, best idea. And again, you can start the easiest, probably lowest hanging fruit, facial recognition, temperature sensing kiosks. There you go. You've got access control. You're taking a temperature check at the beginning of at the front door, and then you're allowing access or not based on that outcome. And then, as you can see, to make it better, you can go ahead and add some of these things we talked about, the lanyards. There's ID cards with BLE in them. You can get wristband devices as well. So you can add to that technology to make it more granular. And then finally, the best, of course, is all of these things that we've talked about, which get you from home all the way to actually capturing this data from a compliance and regulatory perspective. So any questions up to this point? Sounds like
no, none so far.
okay. And then let's go ahead and go to the next section there. So for this particular slide, we just wanted to point out that, you as a partner, you may have the capability of doing this from end to end, and that's great. But if there's pieces that you don't know or you're not comfortable with doing, then we can help you with that. So again, this is very logically set out from left to right. As you've seen on a previous slide, the very first thing is we just need to evaluate the customer's current state. We need to figure out where they're at, where they might have shortfalls, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to identify those remaining requirements. And again, that's going to be based on what their specific goals as a company are, what their regulatory compliance requirements are, et cetera. So we can turn that into a plan, and then we can go ahead and address that plan, from any of those shortfalls. So, and then, all the way through the regulatory compliance assessment, where we're going to tell them specifically what they might be subject to or at least consider, we can go ahead and help them design and even implement that solution. And then finally, of course, we can provide support, monitoring, and alerting. So, but again, the nice thing about this, it's modular. If you as the partner are missing a piece of this, then we're just here to back you up and help you. And I saved us some time because it looks like we're at 10:55 my time, I guess 9:55 the call's time. Any questions on up to this point? Now's your chance. Okay.
I did want to introduce Brian Vincic. He's our general manager. He's everything we just went through is he's passionate about. And I think partly because he loves technology, partly because he's got a son who's in high school, who's and he's trying to figure out how they can go back to school in the right way, and also and he's been very much hands-on, even getting on the ladder to install a lot of these access points in our offices. But Brian, if you're on,
secrets, Mitch, you're telling all the secrets now. Yeah, no, thanks for the introduction. I just wanted to join real quick to say hello and thanks for joining today. Mitch is right. We're a small business, and a small business needs to figure out how to be responsible with our COVID-19 response and keep our employees safe. And in today's world, it's very tough to figure that out because there's, excuse me, there's all sorts of mixed guidance out there. And that's why we have Sam retained from For Safety to sort through all that. And Sam's done a great job at doing that, as well as working with some of the OEMs that really complement the solutions that we've talked about here, whether it be kiosks or lanyards or image sensing or temperature sensing, image sensing cameras, et cetera, PPE. So my only comment is that I just this morning received something from the state of California saying COVID-19 school guidance checklist. And I haven't read through it yet, but what's happening is, as you can tell, that there's a stepped up effort now for COVID response and what schools have to comply with. The real push is to get students back in the schools because it's causing a lot of mental health issues or food insecurity issues. Those sound like kind of California terms probably to everybody, but that's in fact what's manifesting. There's kids that rely on schools for meals, and it's no secret, having a teenager myself, it's been challenging for these kids from a mental health perspective because they're social creatures. They're just starting to get into their own and argue with their parents and bond with their friends, and it's a very important part of their development. So with the different strains coming out with this virus now kind of elongating through 2021, if you will, or propagating, I should say, I think these what we're doing here is very important to educate you with what we know, the best we know. And I know our next fast track, I don't want to steal anyone's thunder here, is going to be really exciting, and I'd like Mitch and Sam to talk about that. But anyway, so as we get information, we're definitely going to share it. We appreciate you all tuning in, and we're here to help is the bottom line. And we've been through a lot of this, so feel free to call us one-on-one if you'd like. So that's it. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks. Yeah, and Sam, I know you can go into this as well, but yes. So next week, same time, we'll have a demo on wayfinding from University of Texas in Arlington. So it's a real case deployment, and it's really impressive. So I know this is a teaser, but so please attend that as well. We'll also have some other use cases to highlight on using Mist access points, such as at venues like the Swan and Dolphin in Orlando and others. So and then Sam, you can go into, I guess, some of the other future sessions we have coming up.
Sure. Yep. So next week, again, January 28th, same time. We purposely put up that poll around wayfinding and asset tracking. So it's really great where we've got some people taking advantage of all of the capabilities of Juniper Mist Premium Analytics to create some of these additional capabilities like wayfinding and location-based services. So again, that's next week. And then to follow that one up, I see we've got a 1, a 1, and a 2. So the second one, health screening technologies, we're going to do a deep dive in some temperature sensing kiosks and thermal cameras. So the interesting thing about kiosks, again, there's that whole queuing aspect. So there are other technologies that we've vetted, and you can also use a thermal camera to get more of a group temperature sensing aspect to it. So we're going to take the opportunity to dig down a little deeper into those technologies and your options there. And then finally, the last item on the list there is just really focusing on BLE sensors themselves, Mist and both, in this case, Contact IO and Mist BLE sensors. So if you're curious about those, please reach out or please join. And then let's go to the next slide.
Okay, and I did have a couple questions come in.
Oh,
First
okay.
one is, if an employee shows up to work and does not pass the health check and thus is sent home, can the system look into that employee's agenda for the day and notify others that they will not be present? Thus, other employees' calendars can be adjusted to accommodate.
Yeah, that's a really great question. It would really depend on what HR system you have. So that now what out of the box the solution can alert, and it can alert multiple people. So I think in that alert, that'd be more of a process solution than a program solution, but there should probably be a process defined that, in fact, there needs to be a process. If somebody does not pass the health screening, what is your process? Okay, you've sent them home. Is the person that's notified about their situation, maybe somebody from HR or from security? They're the ones who would need to, okay, I need to look up that person's supervisor, and then let them know what's going on, etc. So that's probably more of a process than an actual programmable event, although I'm sure it could be programmed depending on your backend HR system.
Okay, thanks. Next one, I think we may have touched on this one. What is the range of those BLE devices? Just to clarify, I guess.
Okay, so there is a few different things. As far as the Juniper AP/BLE sensors, the optimum range, again, and I'll let you jump in again, Keegan, if you want, is, I want to say 16 feet or less. Is that correct?
I think it's more, I believe it's around 15 meters in a radial direction.
Okay.
Because we have, I forget the dimensions of our office, but we could have one in the center of our office and it reaches both sides of the walls, I think. So, yeah.
And then, just as a side note, those of you that are familiar with Juniper, with APs in general, you can use Ekahau and load up a floor plan, and you can do it based on BLE sensors, and that will give you the recommended distance and spacing for that space.
Okay. Thanks. And one last question. How long ago have you started? I think they mean this whole journey in general and back to the office journey.
Boy, that'd be a good question for Brian. I think you've been.
I can answer that one almost to the day. We started somewhere in early June, believe it or not. We started with PPE and also rearranging the office, making sure that we had signage of no more than 2 people in this area, the kitchen area. And then I believe in over the summer, don't know exactly what date we put in the kiosk because we didn't want to manually take everyone's temperature coming in, and the kiosk just provided us an awesome way of automating that, logging everything and alerting us if someone showed up and they went to the kiosk and it said they had a temperature. Now, for privacy reasons, we actually changed the kiosk to pass fail instead of giving an exact temperature. And then we would ask on the questionnaire, like Sam said, around, have you been exposed to anyone with COVID? And that went from touching the screen, which was not something you want people to do, to a hand gesture, so they can answer the question via a hand gesture. And then we went ahead, when we thought the office was going to open in late summer, we went ahead and installed all the contact tracing, proximity tracing, and the analytics. However, our county has been shut down, so we have not been able to return to the office. We're ready as heck to do it, but we have to wait for the county to say it's a go.
Okay. And then finally, is that it for questions, Bailey? Any other?
Yep, those are all the questions for now.
Oh,
thanks.
Okay, awesome. So you can see up here on the end, you've got my email address and you have Mitch's email address. If you have any questions or something comes up later where you were thinking about something, absolutely, please feel free to write these down and shoot us a note. Also, if anybody has any ideas for future fast tracks that you'd really like to see us do, that'd be great too. Would love to get your ideas.
Yeah, also, if you have a customer who's interested in any of these solutions, we'd love to do a mini version of this with you and your customer.
Absolutely. Yep. So we set out to, we said our objective was to, give you an overview of the Internet of Behaviors and really show you how it can add value. And hopefully we succeeded in doing that. We will. There'll be one more poll that will be a survey that we'll send out to you, which we'd appreciate your comments on and any feedback. Also, we'll send out the deck and I think a link for the recording as well. So thanks so much for attending today. Really, really appreciate it. Hope you got a lot out of it. And again, we'll look to see you in a week for the wayfinding demo and everything else that we're going to do next week. So we're really excited about that. Hope you are as well. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.